All right, good afternoon, and welcome to our final webinar for our Virtual PreMed Conference series in May. I'm your host, Latanya Neely, and I'm also joined by Ms. Tria Smith. And we are the recruiters for the UTMB School of Medicine, and we're excited to be with you again. Today is a special day because we have invited a diverse panel of students to share with you about their experiences at UTMB. They're looking forward to answering your questions with honesty and with candidness. Our panel will be moderated by our ambassador leaders, Ms. Silpa Yara and Ms. Alex Brown. Throughout this session, we will entertain your questions and we will ask the panel a few of our own. So please type your questions in the Q&A box so that we can address those accordingly. So to get us started, I'd like to welcome Silpa and Alex.
Thank you, Ms. Neely, and thank you, Ms. Smith. I just want to say welcome everyone to this pre-med webinar. We're very delighted to have you guys with us. Like Ms. Neely said, my name is Silpa Yara. I am a current MS3 and I am one of the panel coordinators, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A session today along with Alex. So if we could just start off by, we have this wonderful diverse group of panelists from UTMB School of Medicine. And if we can start off by, if you guys can go one by one and introduce yourselves, stating your name, your school year, hometown, and your undergraduate college.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Nguyen. I'm a MS4, a fourth year medical student. I'm from Sugar Land, Texas, and I went to Rice University for undergraduate.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Pham. I am also a fourth year medical student. I'm from Houston, Texas, and I went to the University of Houston for undergrad.
Hi guys, I'm Hugo Sanchez. I'm a MS3, and then I'm from the Valley, and I went to UTRGV for undergrad.
Hi guys, my name's Kim. I'm also an MS3. I'm also from Sugar Land, Texas, and I went to UT Austin for undergrad.
Hello, I'm Mark. I'm from Colleyville up in DFW. I went out of state to St. Louis University for undergrad, and I'm also one of the MS3s.
Hi, I'm Jamie Peel. I'm from Arlington, Texas in the DFW area, and I went to University of North Texas.
Hey everyone, my name is Crescencio. I'm from a small town called Crystal City. I went to undergrad at Sam Houston State University, and I'm currently an MS2.
Hello everyone, my name is Xavier Rice. I'm a second year medical student. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and I went to Prairie View A&M University for undergrad.
Hey y'all, my name is Hamza. I am from Richmond, Texas, and I went to undergrad at Sam Houston State University.
Hey y'all, I'm Christina Onibuchi. I'm a first year medical student from Houston, Texas, and then I went to University of Houston, Victoria for undergrad.
Hey guys, my name is Alyssa. I'm a first year medical student and I'm from Dallas, Texas, but I went to the University of Oklahoma for my undergrad.
Hi guys, I'm Robert. I went to the University of North Texas as well, and my hometown is Fort Worth, Texas.
Hey everyone, my name's Alex. I'm also going to be helping moderate the panel, and like Silpa, I'm one of the panel coordinators, and I'm a third year medical student.
All right, well then, we'll get started. We have our coordinators, Ms. Smith and Ms. Neely, were gracious enough to compile a list of questions that were asked in previous webinars from this month. So, just some common questions that pre-med students might have about medical school applications and medical school in general. So I'll start off with some of these questions, and like Ms. Neely said, if you have any other questions that you would like to ask us, please type them in the Q&A chat box and we'll get to them, okay? So the first question that, were some suggested questions for your student panel: how do you deal with stress as a medical student? Jamie, go ahead.
I have found that exercise and sleep are two of the most important factors for me. I've never really been much of a gym person before coming to medical school, but I knew that I needed to develop some sort of wellness factor whenever I wanted to incorporate what my daily routine would be. And I just made it a priority. And I cannot tell you how much a difference it makes in my days whenever I go to the gym and I get in some cardio and just sweat out some of that stress, how much better that makes my day, as well as getting to bed and giving myself 7-8 hours of sleep a day.
Ugo, go ahead.
So my way to deal stress was with baking. Some of my friends here on the panel know about that. So I kind of decided to try a brand new recipe for every single exam of med school that we'd had. And so now my fridge is full of Post-it notes with recipes that I try for every single exam. So I'm not sure if I'm happy I've had that many exams, but at least I've had that many new recipes to try out. And I'm not actually that big of a sweets guy, so I always shared everything. So every time we had our exams, I would just take my baked goods and share with everyone. So that's kind of how I learned to manage my stress. I learned anything from macaroons, like from scratch, all the way to like one of my favorites, cheesecake brownies. So there's many different ways to learn how to manage stress, and definitely plenty of time to do it.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. What aspects of UTMB drew you to the school the most? Xavier, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So what drew me to UTMB the most, if you don't know, I'm going to let you know that UTMB is the most diverse school in Texas. I think that still holds true, especially when I applied. That was true, very important to me as an African-American male. I wanted to make sure that I was going to feel comfortable at school, and UTMB definitely has a community that makes you feel comfortable no matter what background you come from.
Andy, yes, go ahead.
I think what sets UTMB apart when I was looking at different schools was, for me, it was the scheduling. So you're not stuck in one room or one lecture room or one building the whole day. Rather, the schedule for first and second year, it's mainly correlate most to like either the first half of the day before noon or towards the second half of the day from like 12 to 4. And so with a lot of flexibility in your schedule, you're able to kind of do things your own way in terms of like, oh, I study best in the morning, or I study best in person going to lecture, or I study best online. There's a lot of different flexibility in terms of how you study and your schedule that opens up rooms for other fun things in life. So like, I feel like if I didn't go to UTMB and have scheduling that was flexible to me, I couldn't have fun playing volleyball with Alex or Anthony at like 9 to 11 at night, you know, and wake up the next day for class. So I love the flexibility, and I think that's one of the definite like perks and reasons why I wanted to go to UTMB.
Alyssa, yes, go ahead.
So the initial impression I had of UTMB was how like collaborative the environment is here. I feel like all the students like were really close. Everybody seems to have your back. The upperclassmen are constantly giving advice. The faculty is ready to help you. I really liked how we were always helping each other, especially we have this like group chat where, you know, we ask each other questions. It's a very comfortable environment. I never feel uncomfortable asking something I don't know. So I just really like how we all work together.
All right, then. Next question. What aspect of yourself do you believe made you stand out as an applicant? Kim, go ahead.
So I think one thing that I really capitalized on was at UT Austin, at least, there were a lot of opportunities for leadership, and I count myself to be a pretty decent leader. And so I feel like when I was putting together my application for medical school, I talked about the organizations that I felt like I had an impact on and that I felt impacted me as a future medical student and a future physician. And so I I led an organization called Camp Tessim at UT, and in pretty much almost every interview for medical school, especially at UTMB, they asked me about it. And so I think that UTMB does a really good job of finding what's important to you and trying to capitalize on that when you're in medical school, and it's provided me with the same opportunity for leadership throughout these past 3 years. And so I think what I tried to make stand out about myself during my interviews and my applications was my leadership, and then also what drew me to UTMB was the opportunity to continue with that leadership. And so I hope that answered your question.
Christina, yes, go ahead.
Okay, my sign is backwards. I don't know why, but I don't really necessarily know what made me stand out because nobody ever told me, okay, this is why I chose you. But I feel like the most talked about thing for my application was my life experience, and I made my why medicine very strong, and that showed through my personal statement and the things I've done. So I'm very passionate about like health disparities due to like socioeconomic factors and things like that, and I've done things that back up that passion, and I was able to talk about it, and I was able to discuss why I felt so strongly about it. And I think, and I hope they truly saw that passion. So I guess to answer your question, to make yourself stand out is show your passion and show your true self, and that'll 9 times out of 10 be the most talked about, and it'll make you look good because you know what you're talking about and you know what you're saying about that.
Cool. So we'll jump over to some of the questions from the current Q&A chat. The first question is, what was your largest barrier into getting into medical school, and how did you overcome it? Jamie, go ahead.
I always like telling people that it took me two application cycles to get in. And one of my major factors was my MCAT score, and I actually retested on that. I did reapply back-to-back years, which sometimes is not recommended, and you should take that with a grain of salt. Regardless, it really depends on what your situation is, whether you decide to do that or not. But I think that what happened for me was just continuing on, still doing the things, immediately after, not getting accepted that first year, still exploring various volunteer activities, still doing more research, looking for more shadowing opportunities, really showing my passion for getting involved and wanting to be here. And then of course, retaking the MCAT and improving my score as well, I think really went a long way.
Robert?
So in my case, I started medical school at 44. So I knew as part of this journey, I was going to have to shore up my finances before beginning medical school. And so that meant working through undergraduate. And, that was difficult because there's not a lot of room for error in undergraduate, just because the bar is so high to get into medical school. So trying to find a balance between making sure that I was in a financial position to, spend 8 or 10 years without any real income, while also maintaining, this ultra high standard of grades was very challenging, especially because I had 4 kids at home at the time. So there was a lot of time management skills that had to be employed, and those have come in just so useful in medical school, because you really have to be a good time manager in order to be successful in medical school.
Awesome. Next question. What kind of campus resources are available to support and enhance students to succeed, and which resources did you utilize? Anthony?
Well, so your first class when you come into medical school used to be gross anatomy. Now you have kind of a primer to medical school, but gross anatomy is like the first basic science class where you hit the ground running. And what we were able to do during my 4 years of school was to really expand our gross anatomy lab assistant program. We used to have maybe like 3 lab assistants going through and helping students learn about anatomy, and then we got it expanded to maybe like 12 or more. And that's just one example of a resource that we offer. We also have a tutoring office, which will provide weekly tutoring from students who just went through the class the previous year. and also a step one mentoring program where you will be assigned someone who can really analyze your strengths and weaknesses in studying and help you to come up with a plan to tackle board exams.
Mark?
So I think Anthony hit on a lot of the great formal resources that we have. One of the other informal things that I want to also make note of is just the faculty for the various departments. They're all super willing to engage with students, especially as far as research. All you have to do is just email a faculty, and pretty much within a week or two, you can be on a research project that's going to help you towards whatever specialty it is that you're interested in. And additionally to having mentorship through the faculty from various departments as well is a really great support.
Okay, next question. What is the work-life balance of a medical student? Xavier?
Particularly at UTMB, I know somebody earlier mentioned that we have a pretty flexible schedule. And so depending on whether you go to lecture or not, if I include lecture, you're at school maybe 4 hours a day. Well, with that said, you will have study time, but if you do good time management, I particularly had a lot more fun than I worked, and especially in my first year. And in my second year, you get a handle on how you study. And so I would say the workload, I treat it as if I'm at a job. So if I spend 8 hours at a job, usually if I work a 48-hour week, other than that, I kind of treat the rest of the evening or weekend like I'm off. And so, and that changes when you get further in, but definitely the first 2 years, that's how I spend it.
All right, there are some other really good questions on the Q&A that I'm gonna go ahead and ask. What is one thing you wish you would have known or done differently during the interview process? I know it's been a while for some of us, but if you can kind of rack your brain and give any helpful tips.
So maybe not the interview process directly, but getting to the interview process. I think the most important thing was to apply as early as possible. I applied a lot later than people. I applied kind of like August, and people were sending in applications June, July. So I really think that applying earlier will give you a much bigger chance of getting more interviews. So not only were all my interviews later, I just didn't get as many because, they fill up like a certain percent by the end of July. So I think that that's a really big tip, is just apply as early as you can and be yourself in the interview. My interviews ended up becoming like a conversation, and it didn't even feel like an interview anymore. And that's like the best feeling when it's like, wow, they're just really trying to get to know me, and I'm not just like another applicant. They want to get to know me. So.
Jamie, go ahead.
I think it's really important to note that it's a really good idea to look up the school and really kind of peruse their website before you show up for the interview, just kind of knowing what that school's mission is and what they're about, and what can you gain from or gauge what kind of dual degree programs do they have, what kind of focus do they have in the curriculum. I know Xavier talked about like our half days. I think Hugo mentioned as well, the flexibility in the schedule. It's a major selling point, and it's also very different from other schools. So just getting a feel for what you think is going to be the right feel for you for the school you go to, but also knowing a little bit more ahead of time so that you have good questions to ask, so you can ask the students that will be on your interview day more about how you can fit your routine into the structure that's already established at every school that you do interview at.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, Robert, did you want to add something? You can go ahead.
I'll just say very quickly, in my personal experience with UTMB is in all of your interviews, be flexible. So I had a challenge when my interviewer asked me what I liked most about UTMB. I said, well, I love that you guys have NBME format curriculum. And the physician told me, he said, that's the thing I hate the most about this school. And so my response was simply, well, tell me more about that. What am I missing, right? So just be flexible. I think it's a downfall to be rigid during your interview. Don't have anything too pre-planned out. Just, kind of go with the flow.
All right, perfect. Next question. What does a typical school day look like for an MS1? Christina, go ahead.
So for us, I think someone had mentioned before, like you decide personally whether or not you want to go to lecture. Me personally, I went to lecture for anatomy, and then after that, I stopped going pretty much after anatomy. So I'm more productive in the morning. So in the morning, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you have 2 hours of PBL, which is your like small group learning discussions where you discuss a case. So that's what happens in the morning. And if you don't go to lecture, other than anatomy lab, you pretty much have the rest of the day free. For me, I would take like a lunch break and then I would just hit the book studying because I'm more productive in the afternoon. I don't really like to stay up late. I don't like to do things in the evening. So that's what it looks like. You're in school 2 to 4 hours a day, depending on the day. And then the rest of the day is up to you. So it's just how you navigate your day, how you're more productive is how your day will go.
All right, I guess that sums it up. So another question, for those of you that are currently studying for step 1, so for our MS2s out there, or have already taken it, how do you feel the curriculum has prepared you to be successful on the test? Crescencia, go ahead.
So I think the curriculum has done a phenomenal job kind of setting us up for success in STEP. Like Robert mentioned earlier, all our exams are catered to passing step 1. So we take retired NBME questions and use that for our midterms and finals. That kind of already gets the gears going in how you expect questions to be formatted come step 1, and then also how your mind learns to pick up information given how like sentence structures is depending on how the question is developed in terms of like sentence structure and all that. But what I love is that we have organ systems. So we look at not just what a healthy organ system looks like. We look at it in both how does it normally look like, how does it look like when it's functioning normally, and then how does it look like when it's diseased. And so you really get this beautiful like mosaic picture of how it all works together. And then by the end of second year, after having gone through all your organ systems, things should start clicking together, like how the kidneys and muscles interact, or how the heart and respiratory system function together. And then you kind of, hopefully you come to be like, wow, I actually learned something, even though at times it feels like you don't. But yeah, that's kind of my opinion on where I'm at right now in terms of like curriculum and all that.
Jamie, yes, go ahead.
I think Crescencio just summed it up nicely for the curriculum, but I also wanted to throw out there the academic support resources that are out there for us. And I already know somebody already mentioned that you can sign up already to I think you sign up in October, November time to have a step 1 mentor, an upperclassman who basically performed well on the exam and is going to meet with you individually and talk through your study strategies and talk through what worked for them and tell you about the practice exams to take, all these sorts of things. But also academic support will meet with you as often as you want to talk about whether it's exam test anxiety, whether it's you're on the right pace, whether or not you're doing the right things for the specialty you're interested in, whatever it is you want to talk about or need to talk about, or maybe you're dealing with something in your personal life that's kind of getting in the way, they can help you with strategies along that as well. So I think that's a really important thing to mention.
Xavier, yes, go ahead.
And I know the question was about curriculum, but just to capitalize on what Jamie said, I think that's something that was actually surprising to me, how helpful upperclassmen were, not just only during step season where we get assigned a mentor, but also just from day one. They kind of just give you the keys to be successful. And, you know, it's up to you, obviously, to apply. But like, if they're all there from MS2, 3, or 4 to really help you in navigating how you want to study, what to study, you know, and like, just so you can be successful in your exams. And that correlates with STEP. It literally, if you keep with the keys and continue to be consistent, then when you get to step 1, you'll be more than ready, at least, to go into the hardcore studying and ready to take the test.
Awesome, thanks y'all. And just to kind of touch on it, because when I was applying, I didn't really know what step 1 was, but it's kind of the first part of the medical licensing exam that you take typically around the end of your second year. You do at UTMB, different schools have a different timeline, but just in case someone didn't know what that was. So the next question we'll hit is, what was your transition to medical school like? Alyssa?
So I may be a little biased, but my transition was pretty seamless. We got like a package of like start dates and everything like a month or two before everything started. And I know no one here, I believe, except the MS1s experienced Meta. So Meta honestly really helped my transition into medical school. It was so nice to get to know everyone in my class in like a not really stressful environment. I can't imagine meeting all of them for the first time at like white coat ceremony, because we were all like best friends by the end by that time. So I think just really getting to know the classmates also really helped us like get comfortable with each other. Hey, can you help me with this? I don't understand that. So yeah.
Andy?
I keep doing that, sorry. So for my transition, it wasn't as seamless as Alyssa. I think going into med school from undergrad, you know, you're used to you having to get top scores just because you need to get into medical school. And so for me, I remember the first exam was the gross anatomy and radiology. And then I thought, you know, like I did okay. I didn't think I did well or like bad, and then grades came back, and I remember it was like probably one of the worst grades I've ever had. And for me, that brought a shock to my system, as well as kind of made me reflect on why is it that, you know, I did poorly. And so it was me trying to find ground in terms of what I'm doing that is helpful in terms of studying. So whether am I studying with a group better? Am I studying by myself better? Is it studying at home better or studying at the library better? And so for a brief period of time, you know, I had to find that ground, in which I suggest you guys do now if you have time to see like how you study best, like what is your studying style, or like how you can really take in the information and retain it. And once you really find that ground, and for me that took a while, but once I did it, everything kind of was a nice transition. But in the beginning, it was a little bit rocky, and that's okay if any one of you guys are going to have the same experience.
Hamza?
Yeah, so for me, things were a little bit tough. I was the kind of student in college who could kind of get away with all-nighters, and to an extent, I still kind of do. But it's a lot more learning is a lot more longitudinal at UTMB and in medical school in general, just because the content is just so voluminous. Like there's just so much to learn. And so what really helped for me was there's this app called Anki, and it's like a flashcard app, and it gets things consolidated your long-term memory. And so it's really important that you know, like as you're studying, you kind of roll things into your long-term memory instead of just trying to go test to test, and that really ends up helping you in the long run. So that really helped me studying, and it was definitely kind of rough towards the first year, but I think I got it second year.
Awesome. Next question is, how do you maintain some form of financial stability in medical school? Kim, and then Jamie, and then Christina.
Okay, well, I went straight from college to medical school, and I was like kind of self-supporting myself in college. So for medical school, I took out loans. And that's a lot of your classmates. That's what's going to be happening. You'll just have to take out federal loans. I don't suggest private loans, but if that's an option that for you, then that too. And it's just kind of based off of your need, what you can provide for yourself, and then what the school kind of determines your need will be. And so for a lot of us, it's loans. That's the financial stability. I think keeping a budget is really important. Luckily, housing in Galveston's pretty cheap, so that's not too terrible of an issue. But I will say between first and second year, at least for when I was a first year, we had like 8 weeks off, and I was actually able to work an old job of mine from college remotely. And so I think there are lots of ways that you can try and find some financial stability, but unfortunately for a lot of us, it's student loans. But there's a financial aid office on campus that's super, super helpful with that. They were able to really guide me in telling me how much I should take out and really calm my nerves about the whole process. So loans is one. If you have some financial support from maybe your family members, that's always a good option too. But know that you have some time to do some like side jobs if you want in the middle of first and second year. I don't know if that's still the case.
I think Kim just summed up everything regarding loans pretty well. I take the full cost of attendance, just to let you know, and I live off of loans, and it's been really interesting going through COVID and actually feeling pretty financially secure because of it, because I already have my funds for the entire 6 months, and my FAFSA is already filed for the next round for the next semester. So it's kind of strange that I'm in this I'm one of the more comfortable people right now because I know my funding is there. So I really just wanted to share that. And then there are always scholarships as well. Please take the time to fill out the scholarship applications. Take the time to research individual scholarships. Take the time to write the essays if you're looking for funding. I will say that I was a global health student last year, and I mean, I still am, but so whenever I was funding my trip overseas last year, I even did a GoFundMe. I applied for every single scholarship I possibly could to help offset the cost. So there are lots of funding options out there that can help you through the process. But basically, if you're going to go on loans, don't worry, the funding is going to be there, and you do need to think about how much it's going to cost to pay back, but don't be afraid to take those loans if that's what you need, because the worst thing you can do is just stress yourself out over something that you have the help there for you. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Jamie and Kim. For me, I've been working since I was 16, and this is the first time in my life I've never not worked. So that transition was huge for me, like not having a steady income every month. At first, I was very afraid to take loans. I knew I needed them, but I was like, wow, this is a lot of debt that I'm about to get into. But you can't think about that. This is an investment in yourself. But be smart with your money. Like I budget every month. I don't spend crazy if I don't need to. I'm still making sure I spend a certain amount every month, but take the loans if you need them. Don't stress about them, but also be smart with your money.
Hugo, if you had
Yeah, just wanted to add something quick. So I am a little bit different from most students. I'm a military HPSP student, so that's a full scholarship. They pay for medical school as well as living expenses, so I don't have to worry about anything. I have a monthly income. The only kind of drawback, as you can imagine, is you have a service commitment. Instead of having loans that you need to repay once in residency and working as a doctor, once you finish your training as a physician, you will have to serve a certain number of years. Normally it's 1 for 1, so 4 years of medical school for 4 years of service. Once you do your service commitment, everything is cleared and you're kind of free to go and do whatever it is that you want. So that's an option, something you must consider very deeply because it's a big commitment as well. But it's definitely an option to help you pay through all of med school and not have to worry about your month-to-month, living expenses. But it's obviously not something for everyone, so just something you guys can consider.
All
Robert?
right, guys. So we have our next set of questions. Were any of you considered a non-traditional student when applying, and what hurdles did you have to overcome? Go ahead, Jamie.
I said it in the chat already, but I'm 39 years old. I'm a career changer. I never really knew what I wanted to do, so it took me a long time. I started my college education at community college straight out of high school. Never knew what I wanted to do. Dropped out multiple times. Had multiple majors, and I got into a career in management, and I hated it. And I just kind of did it because I needed a job, and I was in a place where I was like, hey, I really want to go to med school. Well, do it then. And so probably made the decision when I was about 32, 33 years old that I was going to just drop my career and go hard full time as an undergrad student, finishing a bachelor's degree and getting into med school. So it can be done. I'm not sure exactly what else I would like to say about that, because I could talk for hours about being a non-traditional student. I think non-traditional students bring something, a higher level of maturity, not trying to bag on anybody, but to the experience, and they know how to navigate some of the challenges a little bit more, just due to the life experience that goes along with that. So it can be quite a benefit, and the best thing you can do is just kind of tell yourself you're worth it and put in the effort and just make things happen.
Perfect. Xavier, go ahead.
I just want to add to what Jamie was saying. If anybody's feeling insecure about being non-traditional, I would say, as a person who was not traditional and I went straight from college to medical school, I somewhat felt like at a disadvantage compared to some of the non-traditional students, because the life experiences that they had really added to their knowledge and really added just to how they analyze certain medical situations in PBL or in the clinic. And I felt like, had I not been traditional, that I probably would have valued that time off. So just take whatever time you have right now. If you are non-traditional and you're transitioning in, then just know that that experience that you have will be useful.
Robert, go ahead.
So I'm currently 45. I started at 44, but and I'm coming from the opposite side of the military. So I'm using my military benefits. I was a flight medic in the Army and was injured on active duty and was medically retired. And so I'm using military benefits called Chapter 31. And so the military actually, they pay for my medical school. They're paying for my medical school and they pay me a stipend. So you can either get paid up front and go in the military, you can go in the military and get hurt, and then that's not the better way to go, trust me. But no, I mean, really, as a non-traditional, probably the thing that was talked about at every single interview was that non-trad students, our strength tends to be that we don't so quickly see the sky is falling when things are going south. And I've had multiple interviewers tell me that they liked non-trads in the class because they tended to be a stabilizing force in the student body. And so that's kind of, I don't know if I would have done that naturally or being aware of that. Now I try to do it more, but I try to be a stabilizing force. Sometimes I don't want to be, but I try to assume that role anyway.
Perfect. Okay. Alrighty then. Our next question is anyone doing a dual degree out of our panelists, and how do you handle the extra work? Or if anyone's in different tracks, anything like Jamie, go ahead.
So I'm not a dual degree student, but I do have friends who are MD PhDs, and we've had some changes to maybe the MD Masters of Public Health program between the year behind me and my year. And so, but from what I know about that in particular is that they really do work around the breaks you have in school. So say, for instance, your first summer between MS1 and MS2, if you're in the Masters of Public Health program, or if you're in the PhD program, you're going to spend that time working on your research, or you're going to be doing some of your additional classwork during that time. So it really is integrated into the program, and it's not necessarily done on top of your already existing coursework. That's not to say that it never will be. I know one of the changes that UTMB made recently was to make the MD MPH program a 4-year program versus a 5-year program. And I don't quite know what that looks, so I don't really have a whole lot of details for you. But Silpa, since you mentioned tracks, I did already mention I'm in the global health program, and that took like maybe 2 to 4 extra hours every month on top of my schoolwork. So it really wasn't anything over the top or crazy. It was something that I really enjoyed. It was actually, you know, something I was excited to go to for my meeting once a month, that type of thing. And I know a lot of the other tracks are very similar, so.
Kim, go ahead.
Hi, okay, so I'm actually taking a year off to get my MPH. I'm a current 3rd year, but I'm leaving at the end of July to get my MPH at a separate institution and then come back. UTMB has been really, really supportive of that, which is not surprising because they've been really supportive of everything else in our career so far, but they've made the transition really easy. I chose to do it because I was talking to the head of the MPH program here, and she was, at that time, they hadn't yet consolidated a 4-year program, or like I wouldn't have been able to do my MPH without completely disrupting my education so far. And also, if I wanted to take an extra year, I was like, I might as well just go do it somewhere else. So it's really up to you and your timeline. Because I am a traditional student, I'm still really young. And so I figured 1 extra year, and I don't have any kids or responsibilities. And so for me, it wasn't a huge deal to take 1 more year, but for a lot of people, that extra year of not an attending salary is a big deal. And so the new combined MD-MPH program is an awesome choice for a lot of people. For me, I wanted to get my experience somewhere else. So it's totally doable, and it's a great option.
All righty then. Thank you, Kim, for answering that. Another question that we have, what kind of volunteer research or work stands out for medical school applicants? Jamie, go ahead, and then Mark.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet. The thing you're most passionate about. The thing that you can speak about most passionately. You don't have to do 50 different things. If there's 1 or 2 things that you're really excited about, do them and do them well.
Pretty much just to piggyback off what Jamie said, definitely be able to explain what you've done for research, what you've done for volunteering. And I would say even trying to go the shotgun approach of saying that I'll go do like 5 or 6 different things throughout the year, but then you've only done like 10, 20 hours in each thing, but all of a sudden you've got like over 200 hours on your application, but you can't really explain anything particularly well or how it has shaped you. The biggest thing that interviewers are going to be looking for is how did your experiences shape you, and what did you actually learn from it, and how are you going to be able to use that and apply it to medical school and as being as a physician in the future.
Awesome. So the next question we're going to go over is, have any of you had kids while in medical school or before med school, and how did you kind of balance that? Robert?
Yeah, so as I said, I have 4 now. I had 4 during undergrad, and now 2 of them are in college themselves. So I still have 2 at home, 2 little ones at home. And really the way I found to balance it is you just you have to schedule your time in with your family. So I have class time, and I have study time, and I have, you know, doing extracurriculars time, and I have, you know, volunteering time, and then I have time that I block off from my family, and I just don't let anything interrupt that. there's nothing a couple extra hours of studying is going to fix that I can't give to them or whatever. And I think when you do that, especially, if you have a significant other and you have kids, they tend to know that they can expect you. And if they know they can expect you at a certain time, in a certain place, and they can see you there consistently, that kind of worry that because maybe you're gone more than you were in the past seems to go away. And it's, it was a little bit of a transition at first, but once we got on a schedule, I mean, my family, they know when to expect me, and I just show up like I show up for everything else. And I shut medical school off when we're doing that. And it's turned out, it's actually a much better work-life balance than I had anticipated. So it's definitely doable to have kids in medical school.
Awesome. So the next question, we had one of our attendees told that their undergraduate school was not a strong pre-med program, and they were told that that would be a barrier for them getting to be accepted. Do y'all think that's true, or have y'all had any experiences with that? Crescencio.
So, I mean, when I went to Sam Houston, in my mind, I wanted to go to med school. I knew that, every undergraduate comes with a brand name, right? Stanford, Harvard, whatever. But what I walked away with from Sam was that if you utilize the opportunities that are presented for you, and you do it in such a way where you can prepare yourself into being in a position again in medical school, or however crappy your classes may be, if you just prepare yourself to as best you can, I think it works out best in your favor. I mean, that's just the mindset that I have, right? Like, I don't believe I'm a victim of my circumstances. I don't ever believe that. I believe I can do something about it, no matter if I'm in Harvard or, Sam Houston or some community college. It doesn't matter. I think if you have it within you to get to where you want to go, it's achievable. I don't know. I don't think you should be discouraged just because you go to a certain undergrad. I think you need to realize that the opportunity is just as equal likely to occur for you. I don't know. That's kind of my thought on it.
Hamza?
Yeah, so disclaimer, I went to undergrad with Chris, and the program at Sam Houston was pretty much non-existent, but I think it really worked in our favor because those faculty members at Sam Houston, they took great care of us. And I know that if I went to a school with a bigger, like a bigger program or someone that was like known for pre-med, like I wouldn't have had as much individualized attention. And as a student, I think that's what I needed. And so they worked with me to give me what I needed at the perfect time that I needed it. And so you have to consider that as well. Like, how much attention will I receive from the staff if I go into this program? And again, like Chris said, it's about, it's about, do you have that drive within you? Because you can make whatever work. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And so another question is, what are the various things that students have had to balance with medical school, including work, relaxation, organizations, and student orgs and stuff like that? I know we kind of briefly talked about ways to balance it, but maybe talking a little bit about like the things that UTMB can offer in terms of student orgs and stuff. Xavier?
So I'm in SGA as the senator for the second year medical students. And we are involved in a lot of things. I go to a meeting every Wednesday, even during the pandemic. And I think a lot of people think I do a lot more than what is required of me. But I feel like as long as you schedule, I mean, I think a lot of us have been echoing the same thing, but as long as you have a schedule, then you can really enjoy the extracurriculars that you're a part of, whether it's something as formal as student government, or it can be something as informal as underwater basket weaving, I don't know.
Alyssa and then Hugo.
So UTMB offers a lot of like diverse student orgs. So I'm actually currently president of Music and Medicine. And I think that's just such a cool organization to have on campus because we incorporate so many things like social events, even just around music, and just to see all the musical talent that medical students have. And we get together and we perform, or we'll go to the beach and jam out, or just have jam jam sessions at each other's houses. Not only does it like bring us closer together, but that's just such a nice student org where you don't need to let go of the stuff that you love just because you're in medical school. You'll find time for your hobbies and your passions, if it's in a student org or if you just want to make time to play music at the end of the day, if that's your thing. So I really think that like orgs like music and medicine, there's a few others that like really they add diversity. It's not all just interest groups like surgical society or whatever. There's so much more to it.
Just to go off what Xavier said, it's all about time management. Med school comes with a lot of responsibilities and a lot of work, but just because it's a lot does not mean that it should take up all your time and basically all your life. As long as you learn how to manage, do what you need to do first and foremost, all your responsibilities, if you can get that done, then you have a lot of time to do whatever else you want to do. And in terms of diversity for like managing different kinds of clubs and organizations, I'm part of one called Good Gamers, and all we do is play Smash, Mario Kart. We go on community days for Pogo or Pokemon Go, if that's still a thing for you guys. So there's plenty of different fun things. There's a fishing club, there's a sailboat club. I've done that, that's been fun. And so you just kind of try to plan your way around your study. You'll find yourself hearing your classmates be like, okay, if I get through these chapters and I get through these videos, I'll have the weekend free and I can go to ACL, So it definitely works out. There's tons of classmates that always plan around, go hardcore studying and doing things they need to do, and they still manage to go to ACL both weekends or something like that. So it's all about time management and what are your priorities? How much do you want things, If you really want to go to ACL, you're going to find the time, you're going to find the drive to work hard and get the stuff that you need to get done. Or if you want to play or just want to chill at your own place, sipping on some wine and watching some bachelorette. We have bachelorette viewing parties here, just so you know. You have time to do whatever you want and manage it all at the same time. It's just how bad do you want it?
Andy?
And so kind of to talk about work-life balance, like Hugo says it very well, just trying to balance everything is definitely possible with all the things you enjoy, not just studying. But I just wanted to throw that in there in terms of like, if you feel like you're ever off balance or you feel very stressed or something's going on in life that's, out of your control, UTMB does offer free counseling, and I'm a proponent of, mental health and mental health awareness. And even myself, when I was trying to balance personal life with studying for STEP, there was a lot of things going on in my brain. And I actually went to those free counseling sessions, and they gave me a lot of resources and things to read and things to look at. And overall, like, they kind of helped me kind of find ground again when I was going through that tough time. So if you do find yourself off balance, UTMB does offer those resources, and it's very important, to get the help that you need. And so I just wanted to throw that in there.
All right, thank you guys. All great answers. We have another question in the Q&A asking, what hurdles and challenges have any of you faced if you were reapplicants to medical school? Jamie, go ahead.
I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record here because I did mention it already that I was a reapplicant, and kind of what I did, just continuing, showing the passion, strengthening my application. But I think first and foremost is just like, do you really want to do it? And I think going through that, not getting accepted the first year, was something that really changed me in a sense, that really hit home that I wanted to be here, because it was, I'll admit it, it was a tear fest for about 10 minutes. And within the hour, I was like, all right, we're doing this again. And so it'll really show you your perseverance and your resilience. And it should make you question why you want to be here in the first place. And it should make you take a good, long, hard look at your application and the things that are on it, and be really honest with yourself before you reapply. And also reach out, utilize any resources you can get your hands on at your university, through, there are tons of Facebook pages that help out with that as well. I'm a member of multiples. Just get out there and get the assessment that you need to be successful the next time you do apply. So it's really just resilience and persistence.
Robert, go ahead.
I'm not a reapplicant, but I did just very quickly want to add this. We have a member of our class who applied 5 consecutive cycles before UTMB accepted him. So I'll just say, if you're a reapplicant, as far as I know, UTMB loves reapplicants. So don't be afraid to apply here.
All right, thank you guys. We have a couple questions about gap years. So for any of you that took a gap year, how do you think your year away from school impacted you in terms of application process or even when you're in medical school? Christina, go ahead.
So I actually took a few gap years in very random order. My first one was between my sophomore and junior year of college. I actually moved across the world to Switzerland and did some schooling there for about a year and a half. I came back and graduated, and I took another gap year to apply after I graduated. And that gap year, I just worked. I feel like, and I think this has been said before, it gave me a lot of life experience that I don't think I would have had otherwise. It taught me how to be independent, how to be flexible, adapt to new environments. So I think it helped me and not hurt me. And anyone who's thinking about applying or taking a gap year, people do for different reasons, like family or money or anything. So I don't think you should feel as if it puts you as at a disadvantage, because it doesn't. So whatever your reason may be, if that's the right choice for you, I feel like you should take it and be confident in it.
All righty then. We have another question about living situations. So what is everyone's living situation? Do you live on campus or off campus? And just how far away do you live on campus if you do live off campus and stuff like that? Kim, go ahead. And then Xavier can go.
So a lot of people live close to campus because it's easier, you can walk. I lived on campus, or not on campus, but pretty much. But I lived near campus on the island for the first 2 years. And then now as a third year, I live in League City, which is about 40 minutes from the UTMB campus. I decided to move to League City because my partner works up at the Space Center. So it's about a 10-15 minute drive for him. What's really great about UTMB is that for a lot of our rotations, you can actually pick the different sites that you want to do your rotations at. And so we have a League City campus or a Victory Lakes campus. We have Webster clinics. We have a bunch of different like satellite clinics that are really close to me. And so I think I've really enjoyed living off the island. It's not for everybody, but if you do choose to live off the island because you have like a husband or a wife or family extenuating circumstances, it's really possible to do that, and the drive isn't bad at all. So a lot of students do that actually.
Yeah, I'm very unique as well. So I stayed on the island, probably like 5 minutes away from campus, and I enjoyed and that was for my first year. I enjoyed the island life, but because I moved in with my partner, I moved to League City, and so my second year, I did the 30 to 40 minute commute, and it wasn't bad. And now I guess I like moving, but because I'm a city boy, I wanted to move to the city. And so I'm moving to Houston because I'm Houston based now. And so I'm moving to downtown Houston. But as you can see, UTMB is very flexible. And so I'll be doing a lot of my rotations in Houston and so that's a possibility. So you don't have to stay on the island, but I did enjoy my time on the island, and it has its own feel that is very unique to it. So, yeah.
All righty, thank you guys. We have another question here about COVID-19, how that's affected our curriculum and how administration has supported us during the COVID-19 pandemic. So if anybody can answer that. Jamie, go ahead, and then Mark.
I want to say that this situation, as we all know, is unprecedented, and y'all probably are rolling your eyes at my use of that word, but it really is true. And the really great thing that UTMB has done throughout the situation has been creating weekly town halls with all classes on the ongoing situation and what's going to happen. They've been very open to our emails, and I know Xavier has a lot to say to that about that, so he may have something really good to add to this. But they've really incorporated us into, like, they've really listened to what our concerns are. They've tried to work through all the issues that we've presented to them, and I've been very impressed with that personally. And I'm going to leave it to somebody else to elaborate on that.
So more on just the actual clerkships and how they've adapted. So for us, obviously, we can't be in the clinics because of COVID-19. So we've been doing all of our clerkships online and having to take our shelf exams, which are the exams you take after each clerkship, at home. And they're basically being proctored through using Zoom while you're still taking it, still through the NVMe. And so everything looks the exact same as if you were in the testing center taking the exams. And as far as the clinical work, what is going to end up happening for us as third years is we're taking our clinical stuff basically after in July for about the first 3 months is when we're making up all of that through 1 and 2 week various clinical almost electives, but basically that what they did for us is they made it almost a lottery, and then you gave them what preferences you wanted for when you were going to take your makeups, and they tried to accommodate us as best as they could. So there won't be a problem if there is something similar to COVID-19 happening maybe 5 years from now when y'all would be third years doing your clerkships. They will be able to accommodate everything and make sure that you're able to graduate on time, which is one of the big concerns.
All right, thank you guys. Alex, go ahead.
So there's a couple questions asking how important doing research is during undergrad and if that can help strengthen an application or improve on an application. Kim?
So I worked at a cancer biology lab for 3 years in undergrad, and I would say that it's important if you publish, and it's important personally for your development. So I wouldn't go out of your way to like cram and find research if you're applying right now and you don't think that you can. If you're getting research only just to apply to medical school, if you're interested in like a MD PhD, or you're interested in like translational research, which we actually have a track here for that, then definitely join a lab and see if your lab has any contacts here at UTMB too, so that you can kind of carry that over. I don't think that research is 100% necessary, but I will say that my UTMB interviewer did research in the area that I did research in, and so we talked a lot about that. And I think UTMB, there's always like this rumor that they try and pair you up with someone who has like a similar passion, and so that was true for me. And so to answer a lot of your questions, I don't think it's necessary. I think it can help you, especially if you publish. But if you're not interested in doing it and you're not interested in research, then don't like break your back trying to get a research position, because it's not worth your time.
Hamza?
So what Crescencio and I did during our undergrad, and I think this would be something I would like advise you guys to do if the option's available. There's like this little program that we had to like work with one of our faculty members and get a little like thesis published. And while it was a good amount of work during our senior year of college, I think that it really paid off. Like everyone's saying, I did research for like 3 years in undergrad, but I hadn't published. But the experience was really valuable, and it was something that I talked about during interviews. So just because you don't publish doesn't mean it's not like advisable to do research. And of course, like you can get in without doing research, but it is advised, and try to do a route that is like both effective for you and the kind of the easiest way to do it. I like making things simple, so try to make things simple for you as much as you can.
Awesome, thanks guys. Next question is, what are some questions that we can expect during the interviews? Crescencio and Christina?
So I answered, there was a similar question that I typed, but one thing that I used in undergrad, or rather me and Hamza used in undergrad, we kind of tag team undergrad and then MCAT together. So there was this document called 100 medical school practice interview questions, and we just kind of went through that, and we picked out the questions that we expected to be asked, and then we picked out questions that, or we saw questions that we didn't really think about that we could be possibly asked. So one of them would be, maybe not one of the expected questions could be, what do you think is the biggest problem in our healthcare system today? And you formulate your answer through research or through your own personal experiences or what have you. But yeah, that was 100 questions, and then similar documents like that, we just kind of filtered and went through them and answered them the best we can.
Yeah, I agree. A common question, I think everyone should know your why medicine answer. Like, why do you want to go into this field? What experiences or whatever have drawn you towards wanting to be a doctor? And just a general rule of thumb, know your application and know everything about your application. Anything on there is fair game for them to ask about, whether it's your research, your volunteer work, or whatever you may have done. And then I got very random ethical questions a few times, like, what would you do in this situation? Basically them seeing how you navigate and think about a different situation. The advice I got was, it's not necessarily your answer, but how you answer it and your thought process as you go through it in regards to ethical questions. So just be ready for those as well.
Awesome. So another question is, with all of the coursework with medical school, how many hours do you typically put into your daily studying? Crescencio, Jamie, and then Alyssa.
So I'm not the smartest guy in our class, I don't think. But one thing that I had to learn in undergrad was, one thing I had to do in undergrad was put a lot of work just to maintain average scores with the class. And so when I came to med school, I figured it was going to be the exact same thing. So for me, like first year, it was when you get here, you got to relearn how to learn again. So for me, it was like 8 to 12 hours a day. I was trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. And then as you figure that out, you become more efficient, where it's maybe 6 to 8 hours a day now. But when you get to STEP, that's a different story. But typically for how flexible UTMB schedule is, for first year, it's like 8 to 12. And then the rest of the day, like say 12 to 7 would be enough for me, or 12 to 6, depending on the course material. But that's kind of how it went for me, I think.
I'm really hesitant to put an hourly time frame on things, because I would say over the first 2 years, things have just changed. There are things that you're better at. There are different requirements. There are different extracurricular activities that you're taking part in. I know to start second year, we start with cardiovascular. I had a pretty solid first year, and I struggled so hard in that class. And I'm not alone in that, but I had to put in a lot more effort than I did previously. So my answer to this is adaptability. And again, always kind of pulling back and knowing yourself and reassessing what your strengths are, and not being afraid to make changes to, maybe you spent your first year doing only 6 hours a day total, going to class, that kind of thing. And then whenever the situation calls for it, you make the changes that are needed to be successful. You have to have that adaptability.
Yeah, I would definitely say, like what Jamie was saying, is adapt. And everybody's different. Like for me, people will fly through Anki in like 2 hours, and I can sit there for way more than 2 hours trying to do Anki, because I just process things a little slower. I really try to understand things, like the mechanisms behind it and whatnot. So it just takes me a lot longer to study than some of my classmates, and that's okay. And then it just really, because of the flexibility, one day I'm just not feeling it, so I have to make it up the second day. So I'll study all afternoon, and then I'll even go past dinner time. So again, it's I really appreciate the flexibility though, because sometimes you're not always 100%. So if you do need to take a day off, it's okay to do that.
Xavier, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I was just gonna say, like, I emphasize. I think I tell this to my friends as well. Like, if you do not work in medical school, some people do work in medical school, but I treat it like it's a job. So, like, if I were in the clinic right now, I would, if I was going as a primary care physician, I would be working from like 8 to 5. So, like, I kind of try to prime my body to like maybe not hardcore study, but make sure that my mind is on medical school during that time, so that when I have a off day, or like I don't get as many off days, or sick days, I would call them, during the week, and I can just enjoy my weekend. So if you treat it like a job and you schedule it out like that, 8 hours is more than enough, as long as you map it out. Because I'm a slow learner, very slow learner. A lot of people do Anki within 2 hours, like Alyssa said, but for me, I mean, it takes me way longer than that. And the 8 hours is sufficient if you plan it out.
Hamza, go ahead.
Thanks. So something I would say, I guess, like short and sweet. Anywhere you go for medical school is going to be a lot of hard work. But remember, UTMB is on the beach, so it's really, really, really nice to be on the beach. That's all I'm going to say.
I just want to hop in here real quick, and we want to thank everybody for joining. Our medical student panel will go until 3:30. We're going to answer a lot of the questions that are still in the Q&A area. If you want to stick around to 3:30, please do. If you have to go, this will be recorded and we will place it on our registration page. For the panelists, if you need to step away, thank you so much for your time. But if you're going to stay to 3:30, stay with us.
All right, guys. We have some other questions on our Q&A. So how is UTMB preparing for the new pass-fail Step 1 exams, and how will this affect residency match stats? Jamie, go ahead, and then Ugo.
I don't think there are really any answers for that right now, unfortunately. I know it's being thought about. I know it's being discussed. And that's kind of what all I have to say about it. It's going to be a big transition for everyone. And one of the biggest challenges I think we've discussed at the second year level is like, oh my gosh, is Step 2 suddenly going to be the more heavily weighted exam? And nobody knows, so, and I think the USMLE and NBME is all working on things like that to prevent that from being the case. But like I said, we don't have the answers for that, unfortunately. In the residencies, I think we're going to just have to continue being, doing all the things that we already do. We're going to continue shadowing and being a part of student orgs and, working with global health or whatever it is that you do, and just presenting the best application you possibly can.
So just a small disclaimer, take everything I say with a grain of salt, as so many things are still in flux and prone to change. They barely announced this, change recently, and they're still kind of working a lot of the kinks. But in terms of how UTMB is going to be preparing or changing to, kind of mitigate this change to pass-fail, I would say nothing, because they already prepare you very well for STEP. It's going to be the same exact exam it's always been. It's just pass-fail now. So now the kind of thing, the ball kind of falls on our court to not take it lightly just because it's pass-fail. And be like, well, I don't have to study for it as hard anymore. I don't have to really, put all the time and effort. It's still a very difficult, challenging exam. And the school still does a very well job of preparing you for it right now. So I don't really see too many changes to how to counter the exam, as the exam will still be the same. It's not going to change on that part. The thing that I have been hearing while talking with various program directors, residency, since I'm, as a third year right now in talks and preparation for apply for residency, is that unfortunately for whatever reason, they still sort of need a stratifier to see where kind of the students are across the board. And so right now in the foreseeable future, although not set in stone, they're seeing Step 2 as a potential exam to be the next stratifier, right? That's still to be seen, but that's just what they're talking about right now. So you guys are aware. Like I said, take it with a grain of salt. And another reason why they kind of like Step 2 to be more of a stratifier is because it's an exam that's far more clinically based, which is what you actually end up using once you go in practice, taking the basic science and applying it clinically, versus Step 1, which has a ton of basic science with some of the clinical aspects kind of sprinkled in throughout the questions. So that's just what I've heard. We don't know how it's actually going to play out. So just kind of keep your mind open about it, and just, I would just say, just stay in the same lane you've been staying, in the terms of studying, focusing, preparing yourself, because that will still get you anywhere that you want.
Anthony, go ahead.
One of our younger faculty, Dr. Farr, has been, really examining the literature and talking to other institutions about how they do things. And so he's been really gung-ho about implementing changes that would put our students at an advantage. And so we used to have some requirements that were in 4th year, and they've kind of been moved to 3rd year now. And they've also changed scheduling for 4th year, so that instead of being 4-week blocks, we're now in 3-week blocks. And while it sounds a little odd, it really does offer students a lot more flexibility in how they want to approach that 4th year. And at the same time, it also allows us to shift our schedule earlier. So what this allows is more study time for step 2. It allows for doing your acting internships, where you're essentially pretending to be an intern as a 4th year student, so that you can get letters of recs earlier for residency. It also allows you to go visit other institutions and rotate with them to kind of make connections there and branch out.
Thank you, guys. Another question that we have on the Q&A: have any of you guys gone through mock interviews to prep for the real deal interview? I know Crescencio had mentioned that him and Hamza went through a series of questions, but Jamie, go ahead. And then Alyssa, and then Christina.
Just real quick, my undergrad school did have an academic advising who set up interviews. They practiced with me. They asked the standard questions that I think Christina, and I'm not sure who else already mentioned, Crescencio already mentioned. They did have some hypothetical type situations, like, if you were a tree, what kind of tree would you be? And that's just something to put you on the spot, and see how quickly you can come up with an answer. There's not a right answer to that. There's not a wrong answer to that. And yeah, I utilized the questions like Crescencio and Hamza mentioned as well. So you can do a really quick Google search. You can use the link that I saw Crescencio put into the chat there, but seriously, you can go on Google and say med school interview questions, and you'll get so many hits.
So my undergraduate offered something called a committee interview. I don't know if all undergraduates do that, but basically it's like a professional interview, and they write you a letter of recommendation at the end of it. You can choose whether or not to send that letter of rec. I actually chose not to. It went terrible. And it didn't affect my application whatsoever, but I still went out. Sorry, the thunder. I left that experience knowing the pressure of a real interview, being asked difficult questions in a time crunch. So I do recommend, if your undergraduate offers it, a committee interview. And if you don't think it went too hot, you don't need to send the letter. It didn't affect my application. So you can always ask your pre-med advisor if it would affect yours or not.
Yeah, the same thing with Alyssa. My pre-med committee did a committee interview as well, except that we didn't have to do the letter thing. So ours was, we actually had to like put on our suit, like whatever nice clothes that we had to go in, and it was like a real interview day type of situation. So I feel like that helped me a lot, as in talking about different questions and knowing what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say them and getting all the nerves out. But if your institution doesn't do that, don't stress about it. Like, ask a friend or a family member or someone from your university, a faculty member, to sit down with you and ask you questions, or even just do them by yourself. But I do recommend going over questions out loud and saying out loud how you would answer them in real life situation.
Oh, Mark, go ahead.
Just a quick thing to add what Jamie said, that there's no wrong answer, especially on like ethics questions. More so what they want to know is just how you're thinking through things, not so much what your answer at the end is.
All right, thank you guys. I think we have time for one last question. So I'm just trying to look over here. Let's see. Okay, I guess this is a good one.
Can I ask a question to you and to the students, because I don't think it's been addressed?
Of course, yeah.
For fun on the island. I mean, everybody's been talking about all this curriculum and all this other stuff, and now I'm like, oh gosh, what do you do for fun? And how, like, we talked about it for a second about how do you digress and, you know, stress relievers. But if you're only in school for 4 hours, what else do you do with your time?
Anthony, go ahead, and then Crescencio.
Pretty much anything that you want to do for fun, you can find it on the island. I got involved with intramurals my first year until I broke my finger, and then I decided to quit. But other than that, just, the island's pretty small. All my friends and I lived at the same apartment complex, so I would just walk over, knock on their doors, and then hang out, play some board games, cook dinner for them, watch shows. And we would also get together and play volleyball 2 to 3 times a week.
In addition, so one thing I picked up coming to Galveston was fishing. And so some of my friends, we would go on a boat and go to the jetties and fish right after the exam, or some of them, if they're brave enough, they'll go, like before a final this past, like 2 classes ago, they would go in the morning and then show up to the class, so our final exam at like 8 a.m. just to go take the exam. So one of the things I do is just fishing and then video games. And then I've also picked up, like barbecuing was another thing. So like there's things that I think UTMB does a great job of allowing you to find new hobbies and experiment that aspect of yourself. Yeah.
Yes, and I particularly do a lot of things for fun. One of them, I'm a very avid Netflix watcher, so I binge TV a lot. And so, but aside from that, like Crescencio, he didn't mention it, but we play basketball quite a lot. I would argue maybe 3 to 4 times a week. And if we could go every day, we probably would, but everybody won't show up every day like us.
Robert, go ahead, and then Alyssa.
So this sounds a little bit like a pitch, but so I built a house in a development here in Texas City called Lago Mar. And as of next year, we have a 12-acre lagoon. It's 25 million gallons of crystal clear water. It's essentially a 25 million gallon swimming pool with a movie theater and a swim-up bar and an obstacle course and everything else. So as of next year, it'll be open to the public. So if you get tired of the crowded beaches in Galveston, Texas City's a 20-minute drive, and you can come up and get out of the fish and shrimp infested water and just get into some real clear Caribbean water up here in Texas City.
Yeah, so sorry, Jamie.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. What I was gonna say was, in terms of the beaches, yeah, sometimes they get crowded, but there's one called Palisade Palms, I believe. It's like behind a hotel or something. It's pretty quiet there, so it's really nice. So after Meta, like one of our classes in Meta, it was nice because it was the summertime. So when we were done with class, we'd just drive over to the beach, get a few drinks, lay out. It was so much fun. Also, every Tuesday and Thursday, we have like really good volleyball players. 7 to 9 Tuesdays and Thursdays we play volleyball, and it gets pretty intense, but it's like a lot of fun. And then of course, like music, and I have lots of jam sessions with my friends, whether it's through the student org or just like us trying to hang out, just jam out. So it's nice.
I just really quick wanted to mention all of the events that get put on by Galveston itself as a tourist destination. We have Art Walk, which is basically once a month during tourist times, where you get to just walk around all the little art galleries. They give you wine, beer, you walk with all your friends, you look at the different artists, you check things out, buy stuff if you like. We have Dickens on the Strand around the holidays, the Christmas time holidays, which is really cool. People are dressed up in Victorian costumes. It's very festive. It's roasted pecans, and just there are events like that throughout the year as well to keep you entertained that I just wanted to kind of plug as well.
Andy?
So everyone's talked a lot about stuff to do on the island, and I know like people are like, oh, it's Galveston, it's on an island, you're pretty enclosed, but actually even if you run out of stuff to do on the island, you could always go to Houston. My friends and I go to Houston maybe twice a month to get Asian food, milk tea. I go sometimes for big concerts that come into Houston, popular artists for concerts all the time, and then even the Houston Rodeo. So there's a lot of things to do while you're on the island. Nothing is really far away. You're not really secluded. So between things you can do just on the island and things you can do off the island with Houston, there's just a lot of fun things going on.
Awesome. Thanks for all of y'all's answers. We're going to kind of start wrapping it up. If any of our panelists want to give just like a really short piece of advice that they wish they knew through the application process, or just like a couple of things they really like about UTMB or that made them choose it. Jamie, go ahead, and then Xavier.
It's just really important to me to tell everybody applying to medical school, and even when you get into medical school, you are more than your GPA, you are more than your MCAT score, you are more than your step 1 score, you are an individual person who brings unique things to the table, and really remember that as you move through this process. It's easy to forget it, it's easy to make these things the most important part of the process, and they're not. You are still a person, you're still a human being, your mental health is important, all of these things. So just remember, you are more.
And I was just gonna say 2 things. I'll say them very quickly. Master the concept of delayed gratification. I truly think, you know, medicine in itself is a very rewarding field, but we take a long time to get to practicing, and that can be kind of discouraging sometimes. And so just have the endurance to know that what you're doing is well worth it. And the second thing, I just truly want to share, and I actually never shared this. I don't even think I've shared this with my friends, but I think it's the most appropriate time to share this. In my first test in medical school, I failed it. Failed it with flying colors, and I truly that was like one of the most discouraging things to me. And I didn't know. I was like, oh my gosh, I did all this, and I'm on the other side, and I'm taking somebody's seat, and I'm not even, you know, doing well. But I will say, like, I guess as a testimony, like I then began to score very well to the point that I was making A's in some classes. And so don't get discouraged from anything, any barrier, whether it be not getting accepted the first time, whether it be, you know, your MCAT was not as hot as you wanted to be. As long as you're resilient and you stay encouraged, then you can do anything. And so, yeah.
Anthony, and then I think I saw Christina, right? Okay.
I'll just say that when you guys are interviewing for medical school, keep in mind that you're trying to find a place that's a good fit for you too. You know, I really enjoyed the atmosphere here, and I'm really happy that I came here because I met some of my best friends who I'm going to be friends with for life in medical school. And you really will grow and change a lot. So just enjoy the journey.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone has said. It's all very true, and something I even remind myself every day to this day. So one thing I wish I would have told myself before is to just stay in my lane. It's so easy to compare yourself to other students, other people, who's doing this research, like who's doing this shadowing, and making yourself feel less because you're not doing what somebody else is doing. But just remember that you're your own person. You have your own journey, your own destination that might not look like your classmate sitting next to you, but just because y'all aren't doing the same thing doesn't mean you're any less than anybody else. So just stay true to yourself, do what you're passionate about, and y'all will be great.
All right, thanks you guys. We are going to, unfortunately we're out of time, but Alex and I made a small, contact info PowerPoint. So we'll put that up for all the panelists that were here today. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. We are always glad to help you guys out and answer any questions that you might have about the whole application process. I know it could be a trying time, but we're always here to help. So please, reach out, and Alex is, I think, going to pull that slide up right now. So you can jot down our email addresses and feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have.
Ms. Smith or Ms. Neely, is there anything y'all wanted to say before I put that up?
Sorry, I had to take off mute. Just wanted to thank all of you, our panelists, for being on, because you all are really special to us. I mean, we personally look to you all to give some feedback and to share your experiences, and we just really thank you for being so honest and so candid. And we appreciate everyone who has been on this webinar, and we hope to see your application in the next application cycle.
I would like to say thank you so much for joining us for the past 4 weeks. Also, thank you to our panelists today. You are an awesome group of students. You took your time out. We have 2 fourth years on the call that will be graduating on Saturday. Well, not the call, excuse me, but the webinar. So I think we need to give a shout out to Andy and Anthony. They have made it through. They will be MDs come Saturday after 11 o'clock because 10 o'clock is their graduation. So I want to tell them personally, congratulations. I'm excited for you fourth years, and I wish you luck in your future endeavors, becoming a doctor and making the world, what is it, working together to work wonders. So our tagline. But I do want to say thank you all for joining us today and for the previous episodes that you've attended with us. And panelists, thank you so much. I can't wait to see you back in the office when we get back to the campus. Other than that, I don't have anything else to share.
All right, I'll share my screen. I've never done this before, so there we go. So that's all of our contact information if you guys have any other questions or anything like that.
Thank you guys for joining us, and thank you for our panelists for, taking out time in your day and coming to join us. You guys are awesome. And thank you all for joining the webinar. And please feel free to reach out to us if you have any other questions. Always happy to help.